Today, I'm pleased to welcome to our studios John Yamris. He is an accomplished author with a brand new book, one of many that he's written over the years, books of poetry and others. And today he's here to tell us all about his life story and his latest book. John, I guess let's start at the beginning. First of all, you are originally from the Wilkes-Barre area. So tell us about that and how you got started writing books.
I am. I grew up on the poor side of the river in Wilkes-Barre, in Swayersville, and how I got started writing. I always tell people that I was too short for the basketball team, too small for the football team, and too bad for the baseball team. So writing poetry was the only way I could meet girls. So that's how I got started.
That sounds pretty interesting. So poetry is your niche, I guess you could say, that you love to write poetry. So tell us about all of that. So you've progressed now that you have selected poems, the director's cut, but this is kind of a compilation of everything you've done throughout the years.
This is almost like a career capping event for me. This book came out a few months ago in a slightly abridged version. It was called Selected Poems. My publisher was pushing me to do 500 pages. And I thought he was crazy. I thought no one would want to buy 550 pages of my poetry. So I had him cut it down to 382 pages, and the book turned out to be the best-selling title he's published. So fast forward a few months, and he kept pushing, and he talked me into going ahead, and we published the full version, the original version, what we call the director's cut.
But John, you've done over 30 books over your life, so tell us a little bit about those. Most of them have been poetry.
Most of them have been poetry. I've published 35 books, 2 really bad novels, 2 memoirs about what it was like for me growing up in coal country, back in the late 50s. Those 2 books were about what it was like for me growing up less than affluent in Wilkes-Barre area, in the coal country, son of a coal miner. Rock and roll was our whole life right back then, and just being kids in the late 50s. So I wrote 2 books about those. I wrote another book about the 5 dogs we had in our life. I wrote a children's book, but for the most part, what I do is poetry.
And now your book is available, but also you're going to be in our area in the not too distant future. You're going to be at the Freeland Authors in the Park on July 30th, so people can come out and meet you in person there, and there's a Q&A as well.
There is, right afterwards. I'm really anxious to meet people, and at the Q&A, I hope to answer some questions for aspiring writers, for young people who want to get into doing what I do. I won't necessarily say they'll make a living at it, but they could try to do what I do and have a good time doing it.
Now you have a unique style and the presentation of the poems itself. So we were talking about this, we weren't sure, but maybe just read one short, brief poem. And it's kind of written in a rather, like the words go down the page in an interesting way as well. So what made you come up with this style?
I always had a vision of poetry as being not as highfalutin as people try to place it. I wanted people to enjoy it, to look forward to it, to relate to it.
Read one short one.
One short one.
To give people an idea of what it's like.
Object lesson. When looking in the mirror, it's often best to overlook the beginnings of a sag under the chin and wrinkles under the eyes. It's often best to ignore the gray around the temples and the bloodshot eyes. No, what you really have to watch out for is that look of fear and resignation, even terror. It'll get you every time.
Pretty cool.
Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure. You came all the way from Reading to be here in our studios in the Hazleton area, so we're really pleased at that. John, thanks so much for being here to talk with us about your books. Where can they get your books? Before you leave, you got to tell them that.
Right now, you can go to Amazon, look for John Yamris, Selected Poems, The Director's Cut, or any of my other books, especially 5 Dogs, if you're a dog lover.
And we all are.
We are.
Pleasure meeting you. Good luck with your books, and hopefully we'll see you in the park in Freeland.
Thank you for having me.
Today's news feature is brought to you by Falvello Law Firm. Have you been injured in a car accident? Call Falvello Law Firm. Your case is our fight.